And I'm going to say hi to Jordan Stevens. How you doing, Jordan?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for joining us. It's great to be here, Craig, as always.
Yeah, it's great to have you. You and I have been working together for a long time. We talked about marketing and marketing strategies. You come in and mentor on our social media and our marketing workshops and a few other things with startups. I'd have a lot of our startups in our community reach out to you when they've had questions and need some mentoring. So it's been great working with you for the years, and I know who you are from all of that work, but the audience doesn't know who you are. So, Jordan, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and why we should listen to you?
Yeah, thank you, Craig. So I am a digital marketer by trade. I have quite an interesting background in that I have a degree in music theory composition, and so I really developed a lot of creative skills through that. And what had actually happened was I ended up running a couple of businesses that were related to audio branding and doing online music lessons. This was before like the internet was really good for doing online lessons. And what I actually really discovered was I had such a passion for marketing and for growing businesses and doing the entrepreneurial type thing. And that led me to getting a career in marketing. So I started at Kudo Mobile working in their social media department, moved over to a couple agency roles where I worked with a ton of different clients across B2B and business to consumer companies from Rogers Communications to TD Bank. And I also started up another company called Pass the Table, which started up with two other guys, and we ended up selling that business within about 2 years of our work. So I've had a lot of various experience running across all sorts of different marketing initiatives and different types of companies, different sizes of companies, different industries. And with that, I've been able to develop a lot of skills around being very data focused, being really driven around ROI. And that's really what we're going to talk about today is figuring out how to make your marketing more efficient. And so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Great. Glad to hear it. So, why don't we get into it? And while you're sharing your presentation, I'll mention to the audience that we want to hear your questions. So put them in the Q&A window. Your questions about marketing, SEO, and digital marketing and conversions. Also, at the end of the presentation, we're going to be taking a look at a few of the sites. Yes, we have your site, poofree.ca on our list. Yes, we'll be taking a look at that. Fantastic. Thank you for putting in the pre-questions there for that. But put your website here. We'll take a look at live. Hey, Justin, welcome. We'll take a look at it live for conversions and SEO. That's great. The more websites, the better, and we'll get to as many as we can. And I'm going to put Jordan on the spot again. He's trying to find that green share window to be able to share his screen, I see. I'm going to put him on the spot. He mentioned earlier off screen that he was happy to get back to everyone who puts their website in here for analysis, that later this week he will get back to you with some comments and feedback. So even if we don't get to it live, put your website information in there and he'll get back to you later this week. So now that we found that and we got the sharing working, Jordan, why don't you take it over?
Yeah, thank you so much, Craig. Yeah, as Craig did mention, I do want to make sure that we get through everybody who has put their websites in. So please do that. As you have questions, put those through. We'll be able to answer those as well. And I will get back to those. Anybody who we don't answer, we'll get back to those at some point as well. So with that, diving into performance marketing, this is truly a passion of mine, being able to make marketing more efficient, making it easier for you to grow your business, grow your revenues, and do it with less resources, which I think all of us today, we're really trying to figure out how to make our businesses run in a way that is much more efficient. It's a lot different than we had done maybe 8 weeks ago. And so I think this is a really important subject matter for us to dive into today. So I already told you a little bit about myself. I'm going to skip that, but let's jump into today's agenda. First, I want to talk a little bit about what is performance marketing. I want to get everybody kind of level set as to what it is. And let's just get into the definitions a little bit so that we're all on the same page. I'm going to dive into getting started with performance marketing. I want to give you some quick ways to get up and running with it so that you can really start implementing right away. With that, I will also talk to you a little about some quick wins, some places you can look for some really super fast ways to start seeing some results from performance marketing. I want to kind of wrap things up after that by summarizing everything we've learned with the 5 pillars of performance marketing. And then I also want to dive in with some common mistakes that you guys might run into as you start to implement these things, to watch out for these things so that you're aware of them and you're ready to go, ready, set. And with that, ready, set, let's get into those. So what is performance marketing? A lot of people, the common definition for performance marketing is it's a form of marketing where advertisers is, we're going to go back a couple of slides there. There we go. Performance marketing really is a form of marketing where the advertiser pays for results. And most often this is known as so having a little bit of technical difficulty there. Sorry. With that, the common definition of performance marketing is really about, driving results through paid media. And when I'm looking at my definition of performance marketing, it's really about a mindset and a process that we go through to improve our marketing activity towards a defined goal. And that goal could be more sales. It could be getting more people into your sales funnel. It could be, really making things more efficient from the amount you're spending in terms of the number of people coming into your business. And so really the key difference is that it's not just about paid marketing. It's about everything that you do with your marketing. It's your SEO. It is your social media. It is your email marketing. All those things tie together to make a difference. And that's what we're all about when I'm talking about performance marketing. I want to give you a quick example, again, just to really make sure that we're all on the same page as to what performance marketing can do and the mindset that we want to have going into it. And to give you a little bit of an idea of the process that performance marketing is. So we have our little stick man over here. He's excited to get out of quarantine and explore the world. He wants to buy a bike. So start doing a search for bikes on Google. What are the new bikes? What are the new things, the new features I should be looking for in a bike? Does a bunch of these searches and ends up on Jen's bike. Her website ends up on this website for a bike store. And at that point, we consider that to be an acquisition. That person has been acquired into our funnel. And so this is an important first step as far as the sales funnel goes, acquisition. The next thing that happens is that person ends up on the website. Our stick man is on the website and he's searching out different pages, taking a look at, different features on the website, maybe downloads a guide on the best bikes for 2020. Downloads this guide. That's a behavior. And all these different behaviors are something we want to measure as well, because we can start to see how engaged our audience is with our content. And so that's just the second step, and we want to be really careful about that, making sure that we're measuring behavior. Finally, they've taken a look at all the competitor things, they've looked at prices, they have a good understanding of the bike they want. They decide to come back to Jen's website, buy the bike. They put in their credit card information, filled out the forms, bike is now being shipped to their house. At this point, we call it conversion. And again, this is another point that we want to be measuring within our performance marketing funnel. We want to be saying, okay, are people converting? How many people are converting? And start looking at some different metrics there. And finally, there's a fourth step. And I think a lot of marketers end up missing that. Not always, but a lot of marketers do, forget or neglect to think about how can we think about loyalty. So this person has now bought their bike. They're excited. They go for a ride. They start sharing this new bike on social media and all their friends start seeing, and they're starting to build up loyalty. They're starting to build up that word of mouth. And as performance marketers, we can think about this as well. We want to be driving continuous business back to our company. And again, we also have to think about if somebody's buying a bike, they're probably going to have some service issues, or they're going to want to upgrade it, add some new wheels, add some new lights to it, whatever that might be. And so we want to keep that person top of mind. So a lot of things we can be doing in that area as well and thinking about loyalty. So as performance marketers, we largely have two jobs. I want to boil it down to two jobs that we have. We just talked about the ABCs, the acquisition, the behavior, and the conversion, as well as loyalty. But we have two jobs here. And essentially those two jobs is one, to minimize the time between those steps. So we have a long process. We want to get the steps to be shorter. The other thing that we can do as a performance marketer is to increase the volume. We want to increase the number of people coming through the funnel. So if we can create more people coming between acquisition and behavior, that likely means we're going to get more people into our conversion as well. And again, if we can get more people coming into the acquisition, we can get more people to come out at the end of the line as well. So be thinking about those two things as you're thinking about performance marketing, as you're thinking about marketing as a whole. The two things that we really want to be working on and focusing on: how can we make each of the steps shorter, and how can we increase the number of people coming through each of those steps? Okay, so if there aren't any questions, I'm going to keep kind of diving into getting started with performance marketing. And right now, the idea with getting started with performance marketing is really simple. There's nothing too difficult here. There are a few steps. The first step I want you guys to do is to make sure that you have Google Analytics set up on your website. It's a free product. There are other analytic packages you can get out, like Adobe has a package, or some other packages as well. But I definitely recommend Google Analytics. It's free. It's very robust. It's a good package to have. Make sure you have that installed on your website, because we want to be seeing the data. We want to be seeing who's coming to our website. We want to start understanding what's going on within our website. And so I think that's really important for us to make sure that we have that installed first, so that as we make changes, as we start adjusting things, we can see whether things are working or not. With Google Analytics, I also want you to have a look at your sales data. I want you to understand what's happening as far as your sales go today. Are you bringing in a lot of people? Who are those people? Who are our most profitable customers? Who are our least profitable customers? Really start to understand who and what and where people are coming from a sales perspective, because the next step is to start building a hypothesis. Within those three stages that I talked about, and loyalty, the acquisition, the behavior, the conversion, we can start setting hypotheses in those spaces. So we can say, for example, let's say we change the titles on our pages. Can we, if we change the titles on our pages, what happens to acquisition? What happens to acquisition? Do we actually get more, people coming into our site? That's a hypothesis. We can do that for each of the different stages, and we want to constantly be changing our hypothesis over time. We want to put one hypothesis in, and then from the next step is to actually run an experiment within that hypothesis. And so this is where we start to say, okay, we've changed this thing on our website. We've made a change to our advertising. Whatever we've done, whatever our hypothesis is, we want to run an experiment around those things. And so once we ran that experiment, the next thing for us is to check those results. We've ran an experiment. Let's see, did that experiment work? Did it match our hypothesis? Did we increase visitors? Did we increase the right number of visitors? Did we increase our conversion? There's all sorts of hypotheses that we can look at. We're going to run the experiment, and then we're going to check our results. And those last three steps, steps 3, 4, and 5, we're going to continuously keep looping through those. And periodically, we want to go in and check our sales data again to make sure that, the things that we're changing, the things that we're doing, the performances that we're trying to get and expecting out of the experiments that we're doing, we want to make sure that it's actually having a good effect on our business. So that's getting started with it. Relatively simple. Definitely, if you have any questions on that process, let us know in the questions and Q&A, and we will definitely get to those as well. Let's jump into.
I want to ask a quick question here before we. The question from Karim is Google Analytics the only analytics you can use on sites? And I know the answer is no, but let me rephrase the question. what other analytics tools have you used outside of Google Analytics that you would recommend?
For sure. Outside of website analytics, I think, if you have a CRM, I think that's a great tool package to look at. If you're using something like a Salesforce or a Marketo or something like that, you can take a look at some of your data within your CRM. I think that's a wonderful place to look. Certainly within, if you have a content management system like a WordPress, you can certainly get some analytics out of there. If you're looking at website data, we're looking at Adobe has a great package. Omniture is the one that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. And then, diving into AdWords, if you're running any AdWords campaign or paid marketing campaign, looking at your advertising data, what's happening in there? Are you getting a lot of people looking at your ads or a lot of people clicking on your ads? And in addition to that, looking at your social media, taking a look at, the Facebook Business Manager, jumping into there and seeing, who are your customers? What are they doing on your page? Are you getting more likes? Is there more engagement on your content? And so those would be the, 3 or 4 areas I would look at. Website analytics, anything from like Google Analytics or the Adobe Omniture, as I mentioned. If you're looking at paid advertising, take a look at your AdWords or your Bing advertising. And then social media, dive into your social media data. Take a look at, if you're using like a Hootsuite, you can dive into that. Or take a look at your Facebook Business Manager if you're using any sort of Facebook advertising or doing social media work on Instagram.
That's great. And the other thing I might add is there's an open source tool called Mautic, stands for Marketing Automation. It's not for the faint of heart, but basically when I say that, it's like you can install it like WordPress on a server somewhere and run your analytics, and it gives you some really good stuff and drip scripts and automation and a bunch of other tools. But being an open source tool, you have to do a lot of work and digging and stuff yourself. So if you're not interested in that, find one of these other tools that can start off cheap and go expensive quickly, like HubSpot or any of the other ones we mentioned. Marketo's good, and a bunch of these others. But Google Analytics is free, and it's a great place to start.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Being able to understand how much time you have as a marketer, as a business owner or an entrepreneur, and whether you actually want to dive into those things. I think that's a great point, Craig. Okay, so I'm going to dive into now some quick wins for us as far as, getting into the performance marketing. What are some things that we could do to get into these things? So I think one of the first things to do is to simplify our content. And one of the best places to do that is to simplify your navigation. This here is an image from a recent update that I did with one of my clients, MD Billing. And the top image there is what their navigation looked like at a couple months ago. And the bottom navigation is what you'll see now. Basically, they had a website expansion. They expanded into a new market. So we had an opportunity to sort of relook at the website. But what you can really see here is a couple key things. First of all, we installed the logo of the website, and that essentially became the homepage. So you see on the top one, you have home here. Most people understand that if you click on a logo, you're going to get to the homepage. And so we were able to eliminate a link there. Also, by looking at some of their data, we understood that their customer page was a page that people weren't looking at. So we consolidated that content into their homepage. And so essentially doing some of these things by consolidating to simplify the navigation, we actually make things a little bit more prominent. So you'll notice now it's much easier to see and notice the try us free button. It's much more prominent. It's there. The login, the contact information, people can understand where those things are. You can see them visually much easier. So we're making it much easier for people to navigate our website. And when we do that, we actually make it easier for people to buy from us. And that's one key point that I want you guys to take away from this, is that make things easy for people and allow them to get by with what you got there. The next thing is to take a look at meta tags. Get a look at your title tags and your descriptions. If you're using WordPress, you can install something like a Yoast SEO to deal with some of this stuff. If you're a non-programmer, this stuff is really easy to change in your HTML. It's very, very simple. It's not very complicated at all, and it won't mess up your website. But do take a look at your meta tags, your title descriptions, and your your title tag as well as your description tag. The title tag, when you go to Google, is the blue link that shows up at the top, and that's kind of the name of the page. And it's really important because Google actually looks at that as a ranking factor. It's going to look at the keywords in there. The other side of things is the description, and this is that little paragraph that shows underneath the blue link on Google. And when you set your description, Google will take that description. Most of the time, it'll take that description. Sometimes it doesn't, but most of the time it will. The way I like to think of the description tag is that it is sort of like an advertisement, and it encourages people to click through on your website. Although Google doesn't use it as a ranking factor, it does use it to display your website, and it'll help people to drive traffic to your website. So this example here is a meta tag from a client that I work with, BlackBerry. And what we did after looking at some data was that we decided that the brand name BlackBerry QNX, all their pages, we were going to move that to the end of the title tag. And this was really important for us because one of the things we think about when we're thinking about SEO is, do we want to rank for branded terms or do we want to rank for non-branded terms? And a lot of times, if you are a relatively well-established company, the branded term you're going to rank for no matter what. You don't really have to do much work to get ranked for it. It's the non-branded stuff that you have to think about. So that's something to think about as you're kind of working on your site. Just think about, okay, where am I going to put the brand name? And where am I going to put the keywords as far as the title tags go? To take a look at your meta descriptions is a great way to improve your website ranking. Once they get to the website, let's talk a little bit about conversion again. This is another example from my client MD Billing, and you'll see here what we installed at the bottom of their pages. Every single one of their pages, except for a few different pages like the privacy policy where it doesn't make sense to have that. We installed what we call a multi-tier call to action box. And essentially what this allows us to do is say, hey, if you're actually ready to buy something, here's the next steps you need to take. On the other side, if you're not ready to buy, here's some other content that you might be interested in. This is really important because a lot of times when you get to the end of a page, that person is actually really engaged. They spent all this time looking at your website, they've read the entire page. Why not tell them where to go next? And this is important for you to remember, not to have dead ends in your website. Make sure you give people options and tell them where to go next. And that's really what we've done here with our call to action. And, from the perspective of driving results, MD Billing, we've seen, about 88% increase in conversion year over year just from these updates that we've made. And so it can be very significant for you guys as well. So think about your call to action. Make sure you have the right one on your website. Another way to increase the conversion is just reduce form friction. I actually don't know whose website this is. I just pulled this from Google the other day, but you can see it looks very difficult to fill out. There's a lot of boxes there. It looks very intimidating. And what you want to do is, as much as possible, reduce the number of form fields that you have on your form. So if you're asking for a phone number and you're actually not going to call that customer, don't even bother putting that in your form. Just take that out. Just take that right out. And, this form here, one of the things, if they needed all these fields, one of the things they could do is move the first name and last name and put it on one line. Use two smaller boxes. That would make it look a little less intimidating. So there's things that you can do to, add fields on your form, but as much as possible, my recommendation is to get rid of as many form fields as you can. Okay, and then with those form fields, one of the things we can do with those is to add value. We want to always be thinking about adding value. And I'm going back to my MD Billing client here again. And we have, a while back, we created an ebook for them and said, here's an ebook for your client. If they sign up to our newsletter, we'll give you that ebook for free. And so basically what you're doing is you're making an exchange. You're taking data from that customer and you're exchanging it for some sort of value add, like an ebook or a 10% off offer. You'll see that a lot of times when you go to websites, whether you're going to Under Armour's website or any other retail website, on your way in, you'll often get a big pop-up box that says, hey, if you sign up for our newsletter, we're going to give you 10% off your first purchase. And so this is a really good way to get data into your system, because we can continuously market to those people in our emails and so on. So those are the quick wins. Quickly to summarize that, we want to check our website navigation, simplify our content. We're going to update our meta tags. We're going to make sure we're using proper call to actions. We're going to reduce form friction, and we're going to add some value onto our website to get people further into the funnel. Let's talk about the pillars of marketing. But before that, are there any questions, Craig?
There's no questions really so far. I've been kind of monitoring this. I like a lot of what you've docked there, especially about the meta tags. It's overlooked by a lot of people. Not only is it overlooked, like if you don't fill in those meta tags, like the title tag stuff for your site and the title description, then or the description, then your Google's just randomly going to take chunks of text from your site. So when I talk to people about that, and the Twitter cards and the Facebook cards, these are all basically off-page SEO that you put on page that are advertisings that lead back to your page. So you got to make them very attractive to click through. What your offer is, why are people clicking on those things? So though that advice is really good. So I appreciate it. I just wanted to echo
and
those
absolutely.
things.
And one thing I'll kind of add to that as well is, we want to make our title tags descriptive. So this was a tip that was given to me. I wrote about this just the other day, and it's really like, if I was to give you a blank sheet of paper with just the title of the website or just the title of the page, would you actually understand just by looking at that title what is supposed to go on that page? So make your title as descriptive as possible. That'll help you not only make the page a little bit easier to understand once people get to it, but it will make it a little bit easier for Google to figure out what's on that page so that you're ranking in the right places. So let's talk about the pillars of performance marketing. I have 5 of them. The first one is to think like a customer. I want you to really put your customer hat on and say, if I were a customer looking for my product, what are some of the things that I would search for? What would be, an ad that would make me attracted to your website? What is some content that would make me understand and want to purchase that product? So really think like a customer. It'll help you get in their mindset. And by doing that, you'll really understand what actually needs to go onto your website and what are the things that you need to do to actually make that performance of your website so much better. The next side of things is, I talked about a lot of things there very quickly, and there's a lot more that we can do as far as improving our marketing, as far as improving our paid advertising or our email campaign. But I want you to take it 1% at a time. Don't try and change everything on your website, because what's going to happen is you're going to change 5 or 6 things, and you're not going to know what worked and what didn't work. So be very careful about the amount of things that you change, and really change, just 1, maybe 2 things at a time. Get a little bit of data, run those experiments that I talked about earlier, and try to make that 1% improvement on a weekly basis, so that by the end of the year, now you're 52% better. And that's significant. That's a significant change for any business that can, end up being 52% better than they were before. So keep it simple and 1% at a time. I want you to also be thinking like a scientist. We talked about this earlier about running experiments. One of the types of experiments that we can run, and this is used a lot in email marketing, but you can do this in paid advertising as well, is to run an A/B test. And essentially an A/B test is like, we have a control, something that we haven't changed. So we have one ad where we haven't changed it at all. And then another ad where we're going to change the title, or we're going to change maybe the call to action, maybe the color of the button or something like that. We're going to change something small. We're going to make one change. And what we do is we send out 50% of people, we send ad A, and then another 50% of people we send to ad B. And what we do over a certain period of time is we look at which ad performed better. Did ad A perform better, or ad B perform better? And then, we decide which one performed better based on the metrics that we set earlier. And we roll out the winning ad to the entire audience. And then we just keep iterating, keep continuing that. And so thinking like a scientist allows us to experiment and think about different things that we might want to change. We can, come up with inventive ways to optimize our performance. And again, this is all about performance marketing. It's all about improving ourselves 1% at a time. Number 4, with that, as we're running our experiments, we need to be looking out for patterns. What are some of the patterns that people are taking when they are looking at your data? Are there a lot of people, taking a look at this page? Are certain people, going from page A to page B to page C? Is that the steps that they're taking? Then cool, that's awesome. That's a pattern that we can look at, and we can really sort of take advantage of those patterns as we're looking to improve our marketing. So if we see people are going from page A, B, and C, but they're not going C, B, A, then we want to make sure that we get more people coming in at page A. So we can really focus our marketing, our acquisition marketing, on getting people to come into page A. So really look out for that pattern. Try to look out for anything, in your data, whether it's sales data or your advertising data or your analytics data. Continue to look for that pattern. Number 5, and last but not least, of course, is to simplify. I talked about this already, and really, find ways to make your website simple. Find ways to make your advertising simple. Find ways to make your social media simple. And what I mean by simple, is it really easy for people to understand your website? Avoid using jargon. Make your titles descriptive so people really understand. Make your call to action, action oriented so that people know what that next step is. Help them along the way. As a resource, you can check out, there's a great book along the UI side of things, and it's really about, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science at all. And so really kind of make sure that you're keeping things simple. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's a lot of stuff that's been done before, and really, look for those things that can make your content simpler, that can make your website easier to navigate and easier to move around, so that it's easier for people to purchase from you. And that's what we want to do at the end of the day. Cool. So last but not least, before we dive into the rest of the QA and the website, I'll quickly kind of run through a couple common mistakes. Those are garbage in, garbage out, which is dig out. Make sure your data is really clean. Try to take care of your data. If you have a marketing email list of some sort, and you have a lot of emails in there that don't work anymore, or people put a fake address or whatever, the data coming out of it isn't going to be good. Or if you have sales data that has errors in it, the data coming out of it is just, it's not going to be good. So make sure as much as you can that whatever you're putting into your data systems, whatever you're putting into your analytics, is good data, good clean data. The cleaner you can make it, the better your insights will be coming out. This is another thing related to data, and making sure that we don't confuse cause and correlation. So we talked about these experiments that we're running. We changed the titles of our page, but we noticed that there was more conversions on our website. But we don't necessarily know, even though we changed that title on our page, we don't necessarily know if it was 100% that title that we changed. It could have been something else. Maybe Google had made a change to their algorithm. Maybe, people came to our site and the site was just faster that day because our servers were working much better. You never really know 100% for sure whether what we changed, that correlation that we saw, our title tags increased the number of conversions, if that correlation actually means the cause. We can certainly infer that, but we can never really say it's the cause. And it can, cause us to go into, sorry for the pun, but, to cause us to go into different places where we don't necessarily want to go down. So just be mindful of that as you're looking at your data. And last but not least, the last thing, I talked about, putting your customer hat on. Do that, definitely put that on, try to think like a customer, but don't forget to actually go out and talk to your customer or your potential customer. Find out what they want, find out the things that they need, find out, what they're looking for from you, what kind of content would make them, really excited and really happy about, doing business with you. And so with all that, that's the summary of everything. I want to dive into some websites, unless there's some questions or any comments you want to jump into, Craig, before we do that.
Yeah, there's a couple. While you take a look at which website here you want to load up, I'll mention a couple things and ask you a couple things. So, mixing up cause and correlation. Do you have tricks and tips for people, such as maybe using UTM codes to understand whether this is a direct result of what you're doing, or not? And how do you like make sure that you're actually tracking where the stuff is coming from and what's worked and what isn't?
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Particularly when you think about email lists, when you're thinking about those things, is to make sure that you're not using email lists that are full of some sort of scraped data. You're going to end up sending out a lot of spam, and you're getting a little bit of trouble for it. And so, make sure you're putting in clean data. I think it's super important. Thanks for reminding me of that, Craig. So let's take a look at this website here. This is Catapult Brewing. These guys are obviously, a microbrewery coming out of, the Toronto area. And so I think it's really, let's take a look at their website really quickly, see what's going on here. And then we have about 20 minutes or so. So give us enough time to look at probably 2, maybe 3 websites, and then leave us a little bit of room to close up and do some Q&A as well. Okay. So taking a look at Catapult Brewing, first of all, let's kind of, take a quick skim through here. Here's what's going on. Okay, so they have some online stores, they have some stuff coming soon. And okay, so a relatively, simple website as far as the homepage goes. There, some different call to actions where we're saying, okay, here's our beers. This is great. Leading us to taking a look more, where can I buy the beers? Okay, so we can buy it online. Great. And a little call to action here. Love our beer. Great. We got some clothes for you, some merchandise. Great. And if you want to get in touch with us. So again, very simple call to action, very easy to understand, the different places that we can go. One of the things that would be really, really nice here to kind of understand, on the homepage a little bit more about the beer. Maybe I believe, let's go to the beer section here. I believe there are 2 beers in the lineup. So we have an American Pale Ale
There's 3 total
and
now, but 2
cool stuff.
beers in cans,
Love
and
it.
there's
So
there's a new vanilla stout that they've got you can get on kegs.
ah, oh, very good.
There happened to be a sponsor of Toronto Starts, full disclosure, and because of the rules just changing related to COVID, they've just been allowed to sell their beer online because of the rules. So they've just added this to their site. So you can see that they haven't really focused around trying to sell beer online.
Okay, well, that's good insight. So, as they're starting to think about, how to sort of implement, selling those beers online, and it can be, interesting from a brand building perspective as well. But even on the homepage, what are those beers? There aren't a lot of them in the category for them, which is cool. You can very easily add them to the homepage, have a little bit of description, talk to me a little bit about the brewing process, what's going on, what makes this beer unique, beyond having this independent beers with 2 passions. Great, we understand a little bit about the core value of that, and so diving into a little bit more detail as far as what the beers are about, how the brewing process looks, and continue along that path as well. So a little bit more content on the homepage, I think, would be helpful from a customer perspective to sort of see what going on as far as the website goes. As you start getting into some of the other, let's take a look at a couple other pages here just to see what's going on here. Okay, so we have traditional, yeah, we got I'm of legal age, so let's make sure we got that. And so okay, so we have a little bit of an online store here, which as you mentioned was a little bit of a startup
There's a lot of friction
thing at
here.
this point. And so good to see that they have this here. and definitely, ask questions and really sort of understand where things are. Okay. I did move my chat box there. So now I can actually see the menu items. So we can actually see where the beers are. We can actually kind of locate them. And I think, again, it's sort of similar to that homepage of the website, just a little bit more detail of what's going on. One of the, companies that I have worked with in the past, that, they've done a really good job. And I want to kind of mention them, which is Cameron's Brewing. And so I've done a little bit of work with these guys in the past. Full disclosure on that, but I just want to let you guys know, take a look at these guys, and not that I want to, show you competitive beers here, but the way they lay out their site is very visual, very understand where things are, what's going on with Cameron's Brewing and all those sort of things. So have a look at those guys as you are, looking at ways to update your website and things that you can do from a visual perspective.
Absolutely, that looks great.
From that, I'm going to dive into one last thing before moving on. I just want to take a look at the source code. And a lot of time when I'm analyzing a website, I want to dive into these things because I'm looking for two things. As I mentioned earlier about the title tag, I want to see what's going on with the title tag. So you can see here, I'm going to highlight it. We have the title tag right here. And this is something, I would probably adjust on this website to make it a little bit more descriptive. The brand name's there, which is great. If people know the brand, awesome. But I think what we need to do is add a little bit more keywords. We might want to say, independent brewery, Toronto, or something along those lines to, help Google and help others understand what this website is about. Craft brewery or, Toronto breweries or whatever, that sort of thing. Just kind of add some keywords into that. And then as well, we're also going to take a look at the description here. And so we don't really have a description that's on the site at this point, which is totally fine. Google's going to take its own description. But, putting a description there allows us to control it a little bit more. So we can control what Google is displaying about our website. And so I want to just point that out as well. So those would probably be two things that I would change with this website right off the top, is to, adjust those meta tags and then take a look at, adding a little bit more detail into the content here. So let's dive into another site. I'm just going to take a look at the sites here as well. See what's going on.
Poofree.ca is okay, or javelinsportsinc.com.
Javelin Sports?
Yeah, javelinsportsinc.com.
Okay, let me, there they are. Yep.
Justin's a member of our community. He's come out several times to Startup Drinks. I've interviewed him for the podcast.
Cool. I'm going to, for some reason, this doesn't want to copy and paste, so let's do that.
So cool. as you can imagine, in the time of COVID, sports leagues and pickup games have been dramatically halted. So whatever advice we could give Justin might be helpful.
Awesome. Yeah, so this is, obviously, as you mentioned, something that is a bit of a challenge. I just taking a look at the website now. It's a nice layout. There's, visual stuff here. There's some good, different things going on. Tells me a little bit about what, what the site is about. You have a website app. And I'm just going to go back up here because a lot of times, probably the most important thing on the website is this section up here, what we call above the fold. And so we want to take a look at, the words that we're putting here. Can I really understand what this website is about, or in this case, what this app is all about? And so, very simply, join sports leagues and pickup games. Okay, I kind of understand it. Sometimes what we want to add to this is a little bit of, what's the benefit? There are other sports leagues out there. What this, to me, just from looking at this, it's sort of a repository of sports league that kind of combines all the other one. I don't know if that's 100% the case, but just looking at that, that's sort of my impression. If that's not the case, then okay, maybe there's some adjustment needed to do within the copy there. But I would also, add a little bit, maybe in a smaller text as to, why should I be using Javelin versus going to another app of some sort. As far as the, thinking around some things to do within the space right now because of what's happening, there's ways for us to do offline games, or what are not offline games, but online games. We can have some different sort of pickups where I've seen certain leagues go into like sports trivia online. I've seen certain groups go into maybe they're starting up like poker leagues or something like that. So that I think there's definitely some online leagues and online games that you can probably set up. Maybe just thinking off the top of the head, maybe we're starting off Pong. Maybe we just get some computer Pong going. It's been a long time since I played that, but maybe you can get like a online Pong league or something. I don't know exactly 100% what that would be, but I would certainly see that there's some options for you as far as that goes. One thing I haven't looked at here, but because you're an app, make sure that you have ads going on in the Google Play Store as well as the iTunes. Make sure you're doing direct download ads there. Take a look at some of your ads that are going on in that space to get people going. I'm actually just going to quickly go click on this Get the App in Google, because I want to see one of the other things that's really, really important. And it looks like you guys are doing really great. You got a 4.8 rating star here. And so I think that's really important for apps, is to make sure that you are managing your reputation. And so getting into those things, as you see, you've responded to some of the feedback, which is awesome. So I think you're doing a great job there as far as, managing your reputation. And so I would continue to do that along the way. Continue to look for ways to, expand the sports leagues outside of offline sports and try to bring it online, at least for the near term. And think about ways that you can sort of engage with your audience. Right now with obviously everything that's going on. So this is really cool. I want to dive a little bit deeper into this site, and then maybe we will have enough time for just one more. It doesn't look like we have a lot of questions in the chat, so that's really cool. I'm just going to take a look at the page source here to see what's going on as far as the title descriptions, meta tags, and whatnot.
And Justin, if you're looking,
things that are super technical, but
while he's looking at this, Justin, what I didn't see on top of the fold is emotion. People don't buy in cold cognition; they buy in hot cognition. So you're trying to incite some emotional connection. So if you had some picture that was inspiring, of like you have a team thing later on, but camaraderie, fitness, inspirational thing really gets people missing it. You have a fairly clear definition of join leagues, but not necessarily a benefit, and you don't necessarily talk about emotion. Did you find what you're looking for, Jordan?
I did not, but
I was going to stop as soon as I saw you found it, but so yeah, keep that in mind, because you really want to that emotional benefit is really get people like they're missing something, because you're not selling sports leagues. What you're selling is camaraderie, friendship, that feeling of fitness. So keep that in mind. Use Wix, he says, so you might find this hard to find. He uses Wix, so this might be in some sort of...
Right. Yeah, that's actually a true point, right? So people are, a lot of times they're going to buy in that emotion before they're going to buy on the technical thing. So let's take a look at one more site as well. Any suggestions, Craig?
Yeah, try this Poo Free. They've been pretty patient. PooFree.ca.
Okay. Where is that one?
It's right at the top. It's the second one I gave you. Yeah.
Got it. Yep. Okay.
Oh, that's not right.
Try that one more time.
There you go.
There we go. Okay. Let's take a look. Poo-free cleansing foam. Neat. So one of the things that I really love about being with startup, TorontoStarts, and the other organizations like that, but it's just like the unique websites, the unique products that people are coming up with to solve problems and challenges,
Send us the
and like this
proper
is something that
homepage
I
there.
probably never would have, thought of, right? So I think it's really really cool. So
Okay. Hey, Jordan, can you scroll to the top there? Sorry,
yeah,
we're
sure.
not on the proper homepage. See where it says home under breadcrumbs there? Right there to the left.
Yep.
Yeah.
Um,
Click on home. That might work too. I
yeah.
didn't try that.
There we go.
There you
Okay.
go.
Yeah.
So we're looking at the
That's
right
this is
page.
the right page to be on.
There we
I
go.
was looking at the other page and was about to say that this doesn't look like a home page, but it is me. It was all me. So, okay. First thing to talk about is these banners. So banners, I love them because it gives us an opportunity to share a lot of different information. However, it can be a bit of a distraction. And so I think in the case of this one, it's probably scrolling a little bit too fast that I'm not able to see exactly what's going on and what this is all about, what the specific products are about. So I think that's, for key, maybe, take a look at how we can organize the banner to not scroll so fast. Um, the other thing I would probably add with at least the layout, the uh, I'm pretty sure that, every client has probably said this to me in the past. It makes the logo bigger, but I think in the case of this website, we have to make the logo just a little bit smaller to sort of condense um, the navigation up top here so that we can get more of the content on the page. A lot of times the navigation isn't necessarily the most important thing for people to see. As we go back to that MD billing one that I showed you before, you can see the amount of space that header took when we recreated it. We kind of condensed it a lot to allow us to see more of the content. And as you can see on my screen here, right, we're not getting a lot of information above the fold. And so I think part of that is just to kind of, adjust that header a little bit. So that's what I would do there. So let's take a look a little bit at the rest of the site. See what's going on here. We'll click on some links here. Okay, so this is an interesting way, having these sort of what we call sort of folders. Essentially, it's almost like an old school drawer folder, which is fine, where you can kind of scroll through the different types of content. And it's a great way to kind of condense content. So I think this is a good idea here. We don't have time to check to it today, but make sure that content is showing up properly in the search engines, because sometimes we use JavaScript to make these transitions and they don't always show up in Google. So that's just one thing for you to check on your end as well, just to make sure that it's actually showing up well. Simple steps. Okay, this is great. Yeah, so I think most of the stuff is really good. It kind of answers the question. I love the fact that there's Q&As here. Google loves to answer questions, and so if you can put questions on your website, FAQs are great. Try not to put them on separate pages. So I really like the fact that they put it on their homepage here, and you can really understand what the product is. Oftentimes, one of the techniques that I'll do is instead of having a specific FAQ section, I'll actually insert those questions within the specific content. So I know we're getting close on time. I'll be happy to kind of dive into some of these a little bit more. I know we have a bunch of other websites to look at as well. And what I'll do is, Craig, I'm sure you'll give me a little bit more information as to who these people are and what their websites are, and I'll be able to get back to everybody on those, giving a little bit of tips and ideas as well. So other than that, I can answer some questions, or we can kind of close it up. I'll leave it up to you, Craig.
Well, we do have a question from Karim here, and it's one of the pillars described early on for looking for pattern, and it relates to A/B testing, cases, cause and correlation, sorry, and simplification are analytics tools used to analyze patterns. Are specific tools used to find patterns, or is it still human analysis?
Yeah, so I think probably the biggest thing to dive into now is, it's a little bit more advanced, if you're going to do it yourself, but looking into something like machine learning and artificial intelligence. So I think machine learning really dives into taking a look and looking at those patterns automatically. Um, there is a tool, and I'm going to send it to Craig after because I forgot the name of it right now. I have to look it up again. But there is a tool that basically, does this sort of thing, where it does a lot of these sort of looking for patterns automatically and it looks into different patterns that are going on and looks for anomalies in those patterns. And so, I'm going to send that out to Craig and he can send it out to the audience afterwards. I can't remember the name of the tool off the top of my head though.
You can use tools like Tableau or R for some of this
Yeah.
AI on top of analytics. So I would use, based on some of these things, I teach a little bit of Google Analytics, and I go through and I create. You create custom reviews and custom reports based on the things that you're looking for, and then you just generally go through and take a look at those reports. Once you create those custom views, you can start sorting by browser from conversions, by device by conversions, by language, by all these things that I kind of look for from a tips and tricks point of view. And then
Yeah,
you,
and right out of the box, analytics is doing some of that pattern stuff for you now as well.
yeah, it's getting better
Um,
all the time.
so you can see some of that right out of the box there. The tool I was thinking about is called Morpheo, and so it's a good tool that looks at some of those anomalies, and you can use it across your business, not just for marketing, but you can use it for looking at attrition rates for your sales staff. You can look at it for looking, for financial fraud. There's all sorts of ways you can use it, but you can definitely use it for marketing as well.
So before we go, do you have any parting words or advice for our audience?
Well, I think, probably the biggest thing, that I said about being an experiment, I think these days with everything that's going on, continue to look for ways to reinvent your business, look for ways to be creative about solving problems and overcoming challenges. We're all facing these setbacks, but I think the businesses that are really going to survive are the ones that can reinvent, the ones that can, be a little bit Darwinian in a sense, the smartest are going to survive. So I think that's really up to you guys to, think about your business, think about it in a different way, take ideas from other industries and really, just be creative and invent. Don't let these challenges stop you.
And I know you're going to reach out to a few of these people, but if people want to reach out to you, follow you, find out more, where would they go?
Absolutely. So the best place to reach me, obviously, go to my website, which is jordanstevens.ca. Go visit that, or find me on LinkedIn. Those are probably the two best places to find me.
And we have one last question. If you don't have a mainstream product, so if you're a startup and no one knows your brand, um, so no one knows to search for you, how do you expand your customer base?
Ah, always a tricky one for sure. From an SEO perspective, you're going to have to think about content. You're going to really have to think about what does your product do and think about the value that it offers and start creating some content around that. There's a lot of times you can do, a pre-campaign. If you look at a lot of Kickstarter campaign, that's really what it's all about. These are products that aren't even out in the world yet. And somebody said, let's create a marketing video and we're going to see if people actually like it. So that would probably be my biggest suggestion to emulate a lot of what's happening on Kickstarter and those various sort of crowdfunding websites and do something like that.
Yeah, and potentially where you win, you can do comparison reports, industry analysis, and place your product in comparison to others, release those as press releases. Go out and do searches to alternative to your competitors, and wherever there's lists or resource, ask for your product to be placed there as well, so you can start placing yourself beside other brand names that people are looking for, and to start create that recognition. So there's a few ways to do that. And depending what your products are, you can try engaging customers with, link bait, tools to learn, tools to use, tricks to expand. Let me give you a quick example of a hack I did for a company that might give you an idea before we go. I worked with a product called the product was called the Knockout, and it was a silicone topper for beer cans or beer bottles that allow you to chug beer and smoke or a cigarette or smoke weed at the same time. So, it's a product. How do you place it? How do you get product awareness? So, one of the things we brainstormed was, all right, what do other people who chug beer and smoke at the same time or want to use this kind of device want to do? So we focused on the frat type community and came in on Cards Against Humanity, Exploding Kitten card games that these people want to do. So what we decided to do was create a page on our site for each version of Cards Against Humanity that was the drinking game or the knockout version. So we had rules. If someone said this word, they had to drink, and if someone said this, they had to smoke, and that kind of stuff. So you have a version for each version of Cards Against Humanity. So we leveraged their brand to drive this product and awareness around this in the community that would be using and drinking and smoking at the same time. So it's just being creative and trying to drive a little bit of content. That was generally, once you figured it out, pretty easy. The first drinking, okay, how do we drinking rules? But once you got it down, it's pretty easy to create these other pages and start showing up in these searches and driving customers that way. Any random tips for that kind of stuff before we go?
That's great. I think that's great to be able to kind of, again, thinking out of the box, thinking about cross, looking at other competitors or looking at other industries, and literally, like, you're stealing from them, but it's not the wrong kind of stealing; it's the right kind of stealing.
Because they're good. It's win-win because they get promoted. People are playing the card. It's yeah, because they still have to go out and buy the card games if they want to play. They still have to. So you start looking at ingenious ways of doing it. So I thought that was a great example. I know we're running late and you got to go. I appreciate you taking the time, Jordan. Thanks for joining us, and we'll have you back again soon.
Awesome. I look forward to it. Everybody have a great great week. Stay safe and healthy, and we'll see you guys next time.